Go and see someone else's work condition. Go and see someone else's perspective. It may not be what you believe or what you want to hear, but we have to actually open our eyes and our ears and our mind and our heart and listen and help the person in the way that they want to be helped.
Hi, everybody. This is Paul Critchley, president of New England Lean Consulting. Welcome to another episode of the New England Lean podcast. This week, it's an honor, truly, to welcome Karyn Ross to the show. If you don't know who Karyn is, she's an internationally acclaimed consultant, coach, lean practitioner. She's taught organizations of all sizes, shapes, in sectors such as diverse as insurance, human resources, transportation, retail, you name it. She's the author of several books, How to Coach for Creativity, Surface Excellence, a Lean Coaching Workbook, and she's the co-author of the very popular Shingo-award winning book entitled The Toyota Way to Service Excellence, Lean Transformation in Service Organizations. And Karyn teaches people how to combine creativity with Toyota Way principles, practices, and tools, which enables organizations to create better, more effective, and efficient ways to work. She also has a new book coming out entitled The Kind Leader, a practical guide to eliminating fear, creating trust, and leading with kindness. And I'm, again, honored that she chose this show to make a very special announcement about that book. So make sure you listen to the whole thing. So in this episode, we talk about just that, about kindness. A few weeks ago, I put a post out on LinkedIn that last time I checked, it was up to like 7,000 views. And that's not the reason I did it, but the post was about a pattern I've been noticing lately, and that is, somebody will post something on LinkedIn, and it's not really that controversial. It's not political or, racial or anything. It's just, hey, I did this thing with lean or leadership, and I really like it, and I think it works well. And, it could be lean, it could be Six Sigma. And almost invariably, as I look down through the comments, somebody has to say something, either you want to call it negative or snarky, and it's tiring. And I struggled with it a little bit because I wasn't sure if I wanted to post something because, again, even if I say anything, it sort of opens me up to the same kind of a thing. In the end, I decided to do it. And in that post, if you didn't see it, basically I said, why is this acceptable? Is this what social media is really supposed to be? Why can't we, if you read something you don't agree, you don't have to say anything about it. Now, on this show, we've talked a lot about that. And I will say that, if I see somebody who says, well, lean is all about cost cutting and lean is all about, single sourcing, and that's why we ran out of toilet paper last year, sometimes I will choose to not combat, but, I'll say, listen, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, I probably read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times article that you're referencing, just so you know they got that wrong. That's not what just-in-time really is or whatever. I try to do that, not to be a know-it-all, but just to say, hey, there's a different perspective here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times I'll just let it go. But my post on LinkedIn was just about that, instead of trying to one-up each other, why can't we just get along, I guess, and practice some kindness? So after that, Karyn made a comment on that post and said, thanks for posting this. I, obviously 100% agree. If you're in the lean community and you think lean and kindness, I mean, Karyn Ross is the name that comes to mind. In the weeks that followed, she and my good friend Mark Graben actually put a blog post out about the same exact thing, so I'll link to that in the show notes. That's why I reached out to Karyn. I've wanted to have her on the show for a long time, and I just felt like the moons kind of aligned, and it was just the right time to do it. And I'm ecstatic that she said yes. So we did this really quick. We actually just recorded this episode a couple of days ago, so it's very timely, very poignant. So I hope you like it, and I hope you get something from it. Make it a great week, everybody. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon. All right, welcome to the New England Lean Podcast. It's an honor to have with us today Karyn Ross. Karyn, how are you?
I am absolutely super fabulous, and it's an honor to be on your podcast. So thank you for the kindness of inviting me.
Sure. Well, honestly, like I told you before we hopped on, you've been on my list to invite for like a year now, and it just, then I took a break to do season 2, and other stuff got busy. But finally, I'm sitting here like I don't know. Last week, I'm like, for crying out loud, I just got to do this and get it done. So I was nervous about asking you too. So I'm like, who am I? I'm like, nobody knows who I am. Everybody knows who Karyn Ross is. I'm like, you know.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been following your podcast since you got started, and I know that my chosen sister, Katie Anderson, was your first guest. So I am super, super happy to be here.
Yes, thank you again, Karyn. So let's jump right in. So I always like to, even though I'm sure a lot of people who listen to the show know who you are, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just hum a few bars about your background and kind of what you're up to.
Sure. Thanks for asking. Many of you may know me as the co-author of Toyota Way to Service Excellence, and How to Coach for Creativity and Service Excellence is my own lean coaching book. As well as all the lean work I do, I also have a foundation for kindness called the Love and Kindness Project Foundation. And we have 2 books from that foundation, Big Karma and Little Cosmo Help Each Other, and Think Kindly, Speak Kindly, and Act Kindly. And when you purchase any of my books, the lean ones or the kindness ones, actually all of the proceeds from those books that come to me as royalties, they actually support our Love and Kindness Project Foundation. And I have a little bit of something new going on because I have a new book coming out, and I also have started what I call the New School for Kind Leaders. So kindness is so important and leadership is so important that I realized that we really need to focus on kindness and leadership. So I have a new book coming out about that, which we'll talk about a little later, and
Yes.
a new school to teach leaders how to be kind.
That's so yes, 100% everything you said. Yes, because, and so you and I have obviously followed each other on social media, and I will give you all the credit in the world of anybody in our lean community. You're the front runner, the poster child of, you know, let's just all be nice to each other. Like, what is this? And it sort of, and I've always seen it, and I'll read your posts and I'm like, I agree with that, and that makes a lot of sense. And actually, you did a COVID inspired webinar, I think, that I was on back in, I don't know, last May, about a year or so ago. And everything you said, it makes a lot of sense, on the show. And even in my practice, we talk a lot about respect for people and culture and all that stuff. But I'll tell you, so this all sort of came to a head in an aha moment for me. So um, on LinkedIn, I had posted something not that long ago about, something that has been bugging me for a while. And I almost didn't post it because I really try to stay positive about things. I mean, it's real easy to get negative and pick things apart and argue, right? So I try to stay away from that. But I ultimately decided to post it. And basically, I'll paraphrase, but I said, it bugs me because I see that people are on LinkedIn or other social media platforms to learn things and ask a lot of questions. And, maybe they're sharing something that they want some input on. And I dare say every time I see something in the thread underneath it in the replies that somebody says, you're not right, I'm right, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's various levels of snarky. And it just honestly, and I'll do like my social media at night after I'm done with a client or something during the day. So I'll be laying in bed and I'll scroll through this stuff and I can feel myself get angry. Like my body gets hot. And it bothers me because I'm like, for the lean community, and we talk respect for people, for lean practitioners to act like that, I didn't understand. So anyway, so I posted something. Why is it this way? Why is it okay for us to be snarky? So then I think you even replied and you're like, you said, yeah, and then, so you're my good friend, Mark Graben, and you had put up a blog post kind of since then. So I wanted to ask you about that. And what's your take on that whole situation?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking about that. And after you posted your post, actually, one of the posts that I put on said, would you rather be right or kind? And I think as we have all had maybe extra stress and all kinds of change and uncertainty during 2020 with COVID and a variety of different things, is that as people started to respond to each other and post things on social media, I also noticed that I think we're getting more and more unkind. And I don't know if it's that people are feeling more stressed or they have less patience, or there's a lot more competition, right? So if you're consultants and coaches like we are and there's less clients to go around, maybe you feel like on social media there's a need to be right. But we've forgotten some of the basics, right? And that the ends, whether you get the client, whether you're right, aren't necessarily the most important thing. Actually, what's more important is the means. As I always say, how we get there is as or more important than where we're going. And when someone posts something on social media, instead of saying, oh my goodness, we don't believe it, that person, is totally wrong, I have a different opinion, actually we forget to be kind and say, hey, that person actually has an opinion. They're stating their opinion. They may come from a different experience than I do. That's okay. We have to actually listen to each other and stop ourselves from just responding in a way that's going to hurt other people. I actually read an article a little while ago, and it had that phrase that, I'm sure we all knew as children: sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And the article was saying we should go back to that and tell people that they have to be responsible for their own emotions. I absolutely don't think that is correct. Sticks and stones are going to hurt you. Your bones are going to heal. But the truth is, something that somebody says to you unkindly, especially if it's from a leader, someone you perceive as someone who has some kind of authority or expertise, that may actually stay with you for the whole rest of your life
Mm-hmm.
and stop you from doing things that you want to do. So we need to be very cognizant. Kindness has to do with how other people perceive our words and our actions. And our thoughts, of course, generate those words and our actions. So we need to really work on acting, speaking, and thinking kindly.
Right. And that's, I guess, and that's why I posted. And like I said, I almost didn't, but then I thought, if I don't, I can't be the only person that feels this way. But if I don't post, you know, maybe other people do feel this way, and maybe it will help them if I at least say something about it. And then I thought, well, how many people, to your point, how many people want to post something about lean, whatever it is, um, and don't, because they're so afraid, like you said, that a air quotes authority figure or a LinkedIn influencer or whatever is going to come after them. And that to me defeats the whole purpose of what that platform is supposed to be there for.
I absolutely 100% agree. And the key to the key word you've said is fear. Because what unkindness creates is fear. And it creates a whole entire vicious cycle of fear. So I'm afraid to post something, or I post something, right? And somebody else says something unkind on my post. Either it's going to prevent me from posting again, or what's going to happen is then maybe I think, well, I'm going to say something unkind back. And we create this whole vicious cycle. Then what happens, because whether you're conscious of it or not, social media has an algorithm. And social media, as Mark Graban say in our blog post, they want you to stay on the site as long as you can for advertising revenue.
Mm.
So actually, as you'll notice, more comments on a post will mean it's shown to more people. So it doesn't matter whether the comments are negative or positive. It's the amount of time you spend, the number of comments. So what happens is people post something unkind. Now we get defensive. We want to defend our position. We actually respond unkindly. And suddenly that post is being shown to more and more people. And it's just spiraling out of control. And really, I want you to think about it. If it's from a LinkedIn influencer, or if it's from someone you perceive as an authority, you read the person's name in the title. Leaders' words travel fast, they travel far, and they carry a lot of weight. So that thing, the more often it's shown on social media, the bigger the impact it's going to have. And honestly, that's an algorithm. In Toyota Way to Service Excellence, we talk about that technology should not be controlling people. That's one of our principles. People need to control technology. So we actually need to take back that algorithm and flood LinkedIn and the internet with kind comments and kind posts, and have people stay on more time because of those things, and have them shown, because otherwise, you know what happens? We start to think the only thing out there in the world is unkindness and negativity, because that is all I am seeing in my feed. But that feed is being determined by an algorithm, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality.
Right. And I don't know, you probably have watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, right? And if true, and again, I don't know, I'm not in that industry, that's super duper scary. But just like you said, it's the more time they spend, the more ad revenue they get, right? The Facebooks, the LinkedIns, the Twitters, right? And all that stuff. That's what they care about. They're there to make money. They're a for-profit organization.
That's it. So we have to stop worrying about the ends, right? Are they going to make money or are they not going to make money? We need to worry about the means, the people, and make sure that we have a choice. Every single day, I can go on social media. I can see something that I really disagree with. I have my own perspective, my own Toyota Way perspective. I see so many things about Lean, about Six Sigma, about theory of control, all kinds of things. I have a choice. When I see someone whose post I disagree with, you know what I can do? I can scroll past.
Right.
If I really think that there's somebody who said something that is totally wrong, I could send them a direct message and say, hey, can we hop on Zoom for a few minutes and have a discussion so I can learn more about your point of view? I can be kind. I could be right at the same time, at least in my opinion, but I don't have to actually do something to fuel this algorithm. I know that if I write something unkind on someone's social media post, because it's Karyn and she's written all these books and she has a Shingo-award, that's going to have a different effect on somebody. So oftentimes when I go to visit a new client or I go to speak at a conference and an organization asks me to come for a Gemba visit, when I get there, I see all these really nervous people. And I'm like, I wonder why they look that way. And then I realize they think I am the Lean police.
Right.
I didn't grow up to be the Lean police. And they're always shocked when I have many complimentary things to say, because you know what? In general, people are doing absolutely the best with what they know. And they're doing a great job. We are hardwired to think of the negative first. And this is actually in my new book, The Kind Leader. We have negativity bias as human beings. So when somebody says something to you, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a negative first response to it. Things that are negative stick with us longer. Things that are negative make a bigger impression on us than things that are positive. If you have 99 things that happen to you in the day that are fabulous, and the last thing that happens to you is the negative, what are you going to think about?
The negative. It's going to keep me up tonight. I guarantee it.
It's going to keep you up tonight. You are not going to think about those 99 positives. So we have to remember that, especially on social media and also just in our real life, that we are going to have to, first of all, work to overcome our own negativity bias and negative first impression. So when I read something on LinkedIn or social media, the first thing that's going to come into my mind is, how do I critique that?
Hmm.
If I know, oh, that's what's going to happen to me when I respond, I can say, okay, now I've had this negative negative first impression. Let's think about how I could actually assume positive intent and think something nice and kind about this. Then I also now have another choice. I could respond to the person kindly and say, oh, this is really interesting to hear your opinion. It's different than mine. Can you tell me more?
Mhm.
How did you come to this opinion? Or if we really disagree and we don't want to do that, we can scroll past. And we have not hurt anybody. We have not made anybody fearful about posting again.
Mhm.
Scroll on past.
Right. Right. Yeah, you don't have to. And that's, an interesting thing. And my wife and I actually talk about this, and you could even, not that Facebook is a professional, at all, but that's like, I don't even know what the right analogy is, but that's all over the place as far as left wing, right wing, Democrat, Republican, you're right, I'm wrong, Bob, right, the whole deal. And I've seen so many fights open up, and people, smart, intelligent, reasonable people, friends of mine, not just Facebook friends, but like real life friends. And they're going at each other like it's life and death. And I'm like, how did we get to this? Like, to your point, just because you see a social media post doesn't mean you have to say anything about it. Just like you said, just scroll past and just be like, well, I don't agree with that. But why put something out there that it's just going to lead to an argument?
Yes. So my best friend, who is, she started out being my client and now she's my best friend and I'm the godchildren for her, godmother for her children. She and I are like the most opposite people you've ever met. She's out in Utah and part of the Latter-day Saints church. I come from a Jewish background, but I'm not really a very religious person. And politically, we are absolutely on the opposite sides of the spectrum. I wore a mask all of the time. They weren't worried so much about it. We're best friends and we get along. Do you know why? Because we trust that the other person came to their beliefs from introspection, from thinking about it. This is a free country. We can all believe what we want. I have to respect someone else's beliefs. Rights come with responsibility. You don't just, and part of that responsibility is to actually listen to others and open your eyes, open your ears, open your mind, and open your heart. Understand people don't have the same beliefs, and then be kind. It is our responsibility to be kind and treat others not only the way that we want to be treated ourselves, but the way they want to be treated. Isn't this, from the lean perspective, what Go and See is all about? Go and see someone else's work condition. Go and see someone else's perspective. It may not be what you believe or what you want to hear, but we have to actually
Mhm.
open our eyes and our ears and our mind and our heart and listen and help the person in the way that they want to be helped. So my friend Michelle and I were like just best friends. And the things that are issues that would make us really have an argument, we don't talk about them. We
Mhm.
agree to disagree. We move forward. We have the same values in many, many, many
Right.
things.
Right. Right. Where is it written, right? That says in order to get along and be friends, you have to tick off 1,000 different check boxes that you believe the same exact thing as I do. Like, number one, that's never ever going to happen. And number two, how boring would this world be if, right? I mean, you talk about groupthink. That's like the ultimate.
That's exactly it. And so this is the really important thing to remember, to be kind on social media, especially. We all spend so much time on our phone, on our, looking at things, is that think about something from somebody else's point of view. You have your experience, they have their experience, and it's okay.
Right.
It's better if it's not the same. I'm going to be able to help some people with my experience and my approach. Paul, you're going to be able to help some people with your experience and your approach. Other people are going to be able to do that as well. Instead of just walling ourselves off, why don't we just say, instead of but, we can say and, yes, and this, yes, and this.
Right.
Right?
Right. Exactly. And that's why it just, like, again, and the whole reason I put that post out was for that very specific reason, because, and not that I expect to change anybody's, viewpoints. It wasn't directed, honestly, at any one particular individual. I didn't have anybody in mind, but it's just this pattern that I've been seeing emerge. And I'll be frank, anybody that I had a major problem with that kind of does that isn't going to see it, because I blocked them a long time ago, because that's their MO, and that's what they like to do. They're there for a debate. And I'm like, I've read articles. It's like, listen, once somebody makes up their mind about something, it's darn near impossible to change their mind. And I don't have the time, and it's not my job. I'm not going to, I have all kinds of other stuff that I'd rather be doing than trying to convert anybody to think the way I think. It's like, that's right. That's not what I'm here for. And I feel like sometimes people treat a social media post as an invitation of, convince me that you are correct. And it's like, I only shared to your point, I only have a very narrow perspective. Like, I've lived in New England almost my entire life, and my history, my background, and everything else. There are people that have no idea of anything I've gone through or have dealt with or privilege that I've had or not. I mean, it's infinity number of things that people don't know. But to your point, we all have different perspectives. And to me, the power of social media is, let's share those, learn about them from each other, not argue that you're wrong, I'm right, because my background and my experience tell me that I'm right. But I think it's naive, I guess, not to be insulting, but for me to think that my background and experience mean that that's the same background and experience for everybody, and therefore everybody else is wrong. I mean, that doesn't, to me, it's like, we're all grown adults. Do we not have figured this out yet?
Right. And really it is that basic lean principle, go to Gamba and see. But it's not just go and see from your own perspective. It's go and see from every other person's perspective. I think another problem with social media is it actually is very dehumanizing. And so what do you see? You see my like little round picture on LinkedIn, teeny tiny up there of whoever I am, and some words. But it's words on a page. And sometimes we see a video, but we don't think of the person who is posting that as a full human being. So my son, throughout the pandemic, he worked in a restaurant before the pandemic, and then he got a job. He actually got COVID, he's recovered, but he got a job in an online call center. And he was totally shocked because having gone from working front of the house in a restaurant where sometimes, there were unhappy customers and he was face to face with the unhappy customers, and sometimes people were rude and unpleasant. But he said the amount of people, and I know this myself because I come from a call center background. That's why I
Mm,
started to learn lean. The amount of people who were rude and unpleasant and swearing at him when they couldn't see him,
mm,
right? And only heard his voice because it wasn't on Zoom, it was just telephone customer service. He was shocked. He was shocked. And when we forget that the other person is a human being, and again, this happens when we focus on the ends. What do I want? What do I
hmm
I'm right. I've got the only right opinion. That when we focus on those ends, we forget that there's a human being with feelings and all of their own baggage that they bring. I tend to think when someone is very unkind, that the reason that they're unkind is that they haven't had the opportunity to learn kindness. I don't know what their home life was like. I don't know how they grew up. I don't know what the atmosphere of their work is, but I know if I respond unkindly with words or actions, all I've done is reinforced what that person already knows.
Mm.
So if someone is super unkind, people sometimes post something unkind on one of my posts. In general, you know what I respond? Thank you very much for contributing to this conversation. I appreciate hearing your opinion. In general, that ends the unkindness
Mm.
because now someone has a different model. They have a model. If someone says that on my post, oh, I can just say, that's okay. Thank you for adding to the conversation and stating your opinion. If we want people to be kinder, we have to give them the example of what kindness is. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to disagree with what someone says, but there's a way to disagree kindly and actually not eviscerate someone or not say something in a way that they're going to carry that with them for the rest of their life, and they're going to be afraid to put another post on social media or comment on social media. We have a conscious and deliberate choice of our own words and our own actions and how we act, how we react and interact with people. That is deliberately our choice. If someone says something to me that I really believe is, systemic racism or is going to be harmful to people, I will respond to that person. You may not see it on the public post, but being kind doesn't mean I'm a pushover. Being
Right.
kind doesn't mean I'm weak. In fact, kindness often takes more strength because I'm going to have to do something harder. It's easy sometimes to respond in anger. You can think about at your own home with your own spouse and your own children. It's easy to respond in anger. It's harder to walk away, take some deep breaths, go back and say, let's talk about this more.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness is not weakness. Kindness is strength.
I just want to sit there just for a second so people kind of sink it in, because I think you're right, Karyn. And I don't understand it. I guess, it's like a competition, maybe, that people, it's like, maybe who can have the snarkiest comment, who can come up with and you're right. I mean, I put out a fair bit of content, not a ton. And normally it's mostly fine. People are like, oh, I like this. And every once in a while, and again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is my perspective. And I've been more careful recently to say those types of things. Like, here, my experiences or my background says, right. But I'm not saying that this is it, it is this. But every once in a while, again, I'll run across somebody. It's like, well, that's not right. Well, to your point, I try, and I don't always succeed, but I try to say, well, thank you. I guess that's your perspective and your opinion. And again, now, and a lot of times those people, that's the end of it. But sometimes they'll come back and they'll say, no, 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 no. I know I'm right. And it's like they're fishing just for that argument. And then it's, to your point too, I wonder if it's that's all they're looking for, is just, to boost their followers or whatever it is.
That's it. And to some people, negative attention is the same as positive attention. Think about children when children are growing up. If they can't get your attention in a
Right.
good way, maybe they're going to do something that they know you really don't like. And I really want to remind people that if someone posts something negative and unpleasant on my social media, I really think about, okay, this is my post. Now I have to decide what to do about this. The first thing I'll always try to do is respond kindly. If there's an escalation and it goes on, now I have to think, okay, actually, this isn't about me. With the person, this is actually about the other person. It's something that's going on with them. And now, you can remove comments. If you're the author of the post, you can remove a comment. If something is unpleasant and it's hurtful to other people, I feel it is actually my responsibility to remove that. I'll often reach out to the person or report it to LinkedIn or other social media platforms. However, it doesn't have to stay on that post. It's my post, and I get to decide what happens to the comments on there, because if it's going to be something that's hurtful to many others, I'm not going to leave it for other people to see. So it's your post. And if someone posts something unkind, it's not about you.
Right.
It's about them, right? It's how it reflects on them.
Right.
I wouldn't
100%.
post something unkind on anybody's post.
Right. And that's just it. I mean, again, I don't, I'm, I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not a big name in Lean, but, I put like I said, I put a fair bit of content out there. I speak at like the AME conference every year. And there have been a handful of times when a stranger will walk up to me and they'll say, "Hey, I saw your video on, or I read your blog post about," and it's something, from 2 years ago. We had a client actually recently, a new client said, "Hey, I saw a YouTube video about you." And I'm like, this is really before I started the podcast, or I'm like, uh-oh, like what was this all about? And as it turns out, it was an obstacle course race that I had run. But it was a good reminder that anything you put out there, it lives on forever.
Yes, and let's think about negativity bias a moment, because if someone says, "Hey, I saw something that you posted on the internet," what's our first feeling is, uh-oh.
Exactly.
What negative is the person going to say about me? If we are already thinking that all those comments and things coming in, we're already assuming negative intent. We're primed to respond in a negative way, right? That is the thing you have to remember. The thing that diffuses unkindness often is kindness. I never assume I know what's in someone's past. I never assume. When I worked in the online call center, I had people who called and screamed at me for all different kinds of things. And I would often say, let's talk about this a little bit. People would call back and they would be crying and they would say, "I'm really sorry that I screamed at you. My husband just asked me for a divorce this morning." I'm not saying that's the way that it always is. But the more often, and this is part of the Think Kindly practice in my Kind Leader book, the more often you can actually work on assuming positive intent and thinking of all the other possible reasons why a person could be acting this way other than they're actually out to get you, the easier it is going to be for you to speak and act more kindly to them and break that cycle of fear and that cycle of unkindness. Because actually the opposite, when we teach people kindness, the opposite of fear happens, and that opposite is trust. And you have to think about this. Fear and kindness can't live together. And I want everybody who's listening and you, Paul, to think about this for a moment. In an atmosphere where you know that whatever is going to happen, your leader is going to treat you kindly, you're not going to be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Why are we afraid? We're afraid someone's going to say you did this wrong. You made a mistake. You lost this customer. You botched this whole thing. How could you ever think about doing something this way? If you were never afraid of that, right? If you knew you were going to be treated kindly, that someone would say, "Let's just talk about this. Let's think it through. Everything's going to be okay. We'll get the client back. Doesn't matter." You would never have any fear. What you would have is trust. And wouldn't we all rather live and work in an environment of trust than an environment of fear? Because when you have trust, you can be your authentic self. You can bring your whole self to work. You can state your opinion without being afraid. You will have so much less stress. And the basis for that is kindness.
Mm-hmm. And think about too, if you go to a workplace that the leader is going to be kind, think about how much better your decisions will be versus, and I've worked in places that worked off of fear. I've told the story on this show before where, I'll have a director or VP screaming at me for no reason. Number one, there's no reason to scream at anybody anyway, but I'm not in the boot camp in the Army or the Marines. I'm like, well, aren't we on the same team? Our badges are both the same color. Why are you yelling at me? It's 7:10 in the morning. And he's literally, at like 2 octaves down from his max and just calling me names. And it's like, this makes no sense. So I quickly quit that job, I will tell you. But then again, like, contrast that with if he was nice to me and just say, hey, I don't understand why you did it this way or that, right? And ask questions and right. Cause to your point, you got to assume I had good intentions. So maybe seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? From Stephen Covey. But there's not a lot of that, it feels like, around. And I guess I struggle with understanding why.
I think part of it is what I will again call this vicious cycle of fear. And our fabulous friend, Deandra Wardell, she was one of the wonderful, I think, 38 people who gave interviews for the Kind Leader book. And so Deandra and I were talking during her Kind Leader interview. And I said, you remember that old cartoon where the boss yells at the employee and the employee goes home and yells at their partner and the partner yells at the child and the child kicks the dog, right? So what happens to us, we all wear leader hats and follower hats multiple times. We put them on and off throughout the day. So when you got your leader hat on and yell at someone, they actually go home and they put their leader hat on and they act in the same way. And I said, so child kicks the dog. And Deandra said, oh yeah, but it doesn't end there. And I'm like, she said, now the child goes to school and bullies the other children and they grow up and they become the leader who at 7:10 in the morning is
that yeah, it could be.
Right? And we constantly perpetuate this cycle. And social media actually makes it worse. So I think about it when I was growing up, and I'm going to date myself, we had a landline only, and my sister and I were allowed to use the telephone for 20 minutes each every night. And you'd walk home from school, because I grew up in Canada and we didn't have busing, you walked. So you walked home from school with your friends. And of course, I'm sure the same amount now as then is that sometimes we wouldn't agree with our friends. We'd get home. There was no this. I could talk for 20 minutes on the telephone to one person. That was my limit. And overnight you sat down, you simmered down, and you reflected and you thought, well, I really want to be friends with this person. I don't want to not be friends with this person. And your friend was at home thinking the same thing because they could only talk on the telephone for 20 minutes and someone else called them. And the next morning, you'd go out to the street and you'd apologize to each other and you'd walk to the school and the whole thing blew over. Of course, my daughter growing up had this.
Yeah.
What happens? Same thing. Go home with your friend. You have an argument. Now everybody's putting it on social media and Facebook and everybody is weighing in and the whole thing spirals out of control. It exacerbates. And again, it makes everything go faster. So I'm sure you've had this experience in companies too, that something in home office, which is halfway across the country, as the CEO says it and your branch hears it somehow in 2 minutes. And then everybody again is on instant message and on emailing things to each other. It just stirs the pot and makes everything bigger, where in fact, what we really need to do is take some time and go and cool off. I cannot tell you how many times when my children were little, I put myself in timeout. When I thought, I'm going to say something unkind. I'm going to act in an unkind way. We're human beings. I would just take myself off to timeout. We need to do that. We need to check our thoughts. We need to Watch what we're thinking for negativity bias, for confirmation bias, that we're only looking for people who agree with our point of view. When we see I reached my limit, I'm going to say something that actually I'm probably going to regret later. Step away, call a timeout. You can do it at work too. If you're a leader, that is a wonderful thing to model. Say, I have reached my saturation point. Let me just step away, because when you wear your leader hat and do that, the people who are your followers, when they put on their leader hat, that's what they're going to take home and do in their family. They're going to do that with their team. This is the way to break that cycle of fear. The way to break it is to create a circle of kindness, because that kindness is going to spread in exactly the same way that fear is going to spread. There are 7.6 billion people here on earth. We have to make a choice to act, speak, and think more kindly, and to break that circle of fear and replace it with a cycle of trust, because guess what? There's no one else here to do it. It's my choice. I can look at that comment that someone put on my post on social media, and I can think I'm just gonna eviscerate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can look at someone else's post and I can say, oh, hello, I am the co-author of the Toyota Way to Service Excellence, and let me tell you all the reasons you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That is not my choice. I am never going to do that.
And it's funny because there are people that will, and they do it all like every single time. And to me, it's like, I don't get it, Karyn. I don't understand. It's like, why do you feel like I guess you're right. It is gotta be, right?
Fear. If someone else is right, maybe they're going to get the client and you're not going to get the work. It is that focus on the ends. Competition, actually, I'm not a big fan of competition. I'm a fan of cooperation, collaboration, working together. Focus on the ends creates that kind of fear, right? If I don't prove that I'm right, oh, maybe someone's going to hire this other person and they're not going to hire me. Or maybe my client is going to be looking through this and is going to say, well, but that's not what my, so-and-so told me about that. Fear. If we got rid of the fear, none of this would happen. People are doing, this is a fear reaction. And again, fear and kindness can't live together. If I refuse to argue with someone on a post, there's no argument. If I just say, thank you very much, I appreciate your opinion, and I don't respond again, there's just no argument. It's over. That is my choice. It is not because I am weak. It is because I am strong. I am strong enough to understand that, along with the responsibility of the expertise that I have, the books that I've written, I have, as long as with that, the rights that I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to help other people learn to express their own voice. I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm not recreating a system that's harmful to other people. I have a responsibility for helping other people learn to be kind and not live in fear. There's nobody else here who is going to change the world except for us. And it happens one word, one act, one thought, one scroll past that post on LinkedIn. What about if we could just look at a post, even if we didn't agree with it, and say, oh, thanks for putting this out there? What kind of different world would we live in? We all have that ability to change the world. We have the ability to reduce fear, create trust, and create a world of kindness in which nobody is afraid to post anything on social media, or to be themselves, or to walk down the street, or to be stopped by the police, any of those things. That's the world that I want to live in. And I am actively working to change it. And your comment on social media, for everybody who's listening, your comment, kind or not, makes a huge difference.
It does, 100%. So, Karyn, I do always like to take a little bit. I know it's a heavy subject, but it was so important to have you on to talk about it. But I do always like to take a little break and play something I call the wicked fun part, if you're up for it.
I have been waiting for this part. I can't wait. Let's go.
All right, here we go. What do you think about when you're alone in your car?
Okay. I actually think about driving because I didn't learn to drive until I was in my 40s, and it took me a really long time to be confident about driving. So when I am alone in my car, I am saying, Karyn, make sure to focus on the road. And actually, I just went for my first in-person, Gemba visit with a client this week, and I was driving an hour and a half to get there, and I thought, oh, it's been like a year and a half since actually I've driven an hour and a half. Then I thought, oh, it's been a year and a half since I've been in the car an hour and a half. And I thought, look how nice, it's beautiful farmland here, look at the birds, look at things. I said, no, look at the road.
That's every time I ask that question, nobody's ever said, I think about driving. That's funny.
About driving.
Here's a good one for you. What was the last gift you gave someone?
All right. The last gift I gave someone when I went to my fabulous client, Hennig in Rockford, Illinois. Noah Gellner, who is the COO vice president over there, has two delightful children. And I brought each of them this like really fun science thing, hand boiler thing. You put this thing in your hand and like the liquid boils up.
Yeah.
And a little gyro racer and a kindness bookmark that Gary Kapanowski made, his nephews made and sent to me. And then what I put in there that was really my favorite was a huge thing of double bubble gum. And that, do you remember those Lick-a-Maid candies?
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous family-owned store around the corner from my house that has all that candy from when I was growing up. So
wow.
I love to bring presents to the children of my clients.
Nice. What did you want to be when you were little?
Right. When I was little, I thought I wanted to be an art professor. And so I come from an academic family. My husband is also a professor, and I have a master's degree in sculpture. So I really wanted to be an artist and an art professor. I am an artist, but the thing that makes me laugh is that I really would have disliked being a professor, I think.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of things that have to do with that sort of academic life. Obviously, I love to write a book. I love to teach people, but I think I would have been super unhappy if I would have been an art professor and living in the theory world in a way, because I'm an unbelievably practical person.
Yeah. And I can see you. I mean, I can see you being an artist. I see all your Instagram posts. It's, it's amazing. It really is.
Thank you.
What's your favorite word?
Oh my goodness. My favorite word is probably kindness. And the reason, and you can say, well, it's kind of an obvious choice. And I think the reason that it's my favorite word is it's the world that I'm really working on creating. I noticed you had a question on your list that's what's your least favorite word. So if you don't mind, I'm going to answer.
I was going to add, that was the next question.
All right. My least favorite word is empower. And you might think, oh, but Karyn is a lean practitioner. Empower is a word that we use all the time. First of all, I really dislike the word power. Power has to do with fear, right? Someone who's in power, someone who's not in power. Usually the person in power is the winner. The person not in power is the loser. Competition, right? I don't think that what we want to do is empower people, because I think that that actually still reinforces that cycle of fear. And I want people to choose words kindly. So enable people, teach people, allow. I don't want to live in a world that's based on power. So I don't want to empower people.
I like it. I had never thought about it, but that one's going to be with me for a while. I got to noodle that one around, but I think I like it.
Cool.
All right, here's a fun one. What superpower do you wish you had?
Oh,
Well, I know you just said you don't like the word power, so it's probably
Okay,
silly.
well, so some of the things, this whole superpower discussion that I've seen has been so interesting to me, because some people say like kindness is a superpower or all these things. Actually, kindness it's not a superpower. It's part of our humanity. So if I could have a superpower though, I probably would like to have like really x-ray vision, because it would like help me with my driving. Like I could see really far away. So one day I was driving to Des Moines, and I live in like Naperville, Illinois, which is 35 miles west of Chicago, and it's nice and flat here. And I really thought, oh, if I could really see, I could, as I'm out there on the highway, I could probably like see Des Moines from here. So go to Gemba and see. I would really like to be able to see super, super, super well.
I'll be honest with you. I went the wrong way out of Des Moines once for about 2 hours. So I don't know if X-ray vision would help, because it's just corn and it was flat, and
I know.
it was, yeah. I was with a sales person at my former way. This is 20 some odd years ago. And so I'm driving, and he was in the passenger seat writing up his notes from when we visited John Deere. And, a couple hours go by, now it's dark, and he's like, geez, we ought to be getting close. And so then we see a mile marker go by, and I hear him say, uh-oh. I'm like, what's uh-oh? He's like, I think we're going the wrong way. I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And sure enough, so oops.
Yes, I've see, I think if I had the superpower of being able to see really far, I would have been able to see that I'm not going home.
Maybe that's true. So, Kira, we just got a couple minutes left, but you've alluded to it a little bit. You have a new book coming out called The Kind Leader. Yes?
Yes, it's called The Kind Leader, a practical guide to eliminating fear, creating trust, and leading with kindness. And I have a super exciting announcement today. So I'm super happy we're here together. And that announcement is that actually the book is available for pre-order on Routledge site. So I'm going to send you the link for that. And hopefully people will be able to go on and pre-order. It will be out in September. And it's a super practical book that's going to help you act, think, and speak more kindly as a leader. Because as a leader, as we said, whether it's on social media, in person, by email, text, Twitter, a leader's words travel far, they travel fast, they carry a lot of weight, and a leader's actions influence the people that follow them. And then when those people put on their leader hat, that's actually how they act. So the way to break the vicious circle of fear that we all often work and live in, that creates all of these terrible problems on social media, is actually to lead with kindness. And so I hope that everybody will buy the book and follow the New School for Kind Leaders on LinkedIn, because we're actively already teaching classes on how to lead with kindness.
Awesome. And thank you for choosing this show to make that announcement. I can't wait. By the time this airs, I'll already have pre-ordered it. So I'll link to it in the show notes for anybody that's driving and listening, so you can click on it later. So congrats, Karyn, on having yet another book out. I can't wait to read it, because again, I think this topic is so important. I think we gotta get away from that. We gotta influence the algorithms. Let's all just kind of help each other.
If you do one act of kindness a day, you'll make a huge difference, right?
Right. Awesome. Karyn, thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Awesome. I'll let you go. I'll leave it right there.
Cool.
All right. Have a great day, Karyn. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, everybody, it's Paul. Before I let you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for listening. You've really made doing this podcast a very rewarding experience for me. I get a lot of messages from listeners, and everyone has something nice to say, which I very much appreciate. Of course, I'm always open to feedback on ways we can make it better. I mean, that's Kaizen after all. And by no stretch do I claim to have got this all figured out. So if there's things that I could do better, please, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know. And likewise, if there's somebody that you think would be a great guest, also let me know. There's a chance I don't know who those folks are. So somebody that you can help put us in touch with, somebody you want to learn more about, certainly let me know and I'll reach out to those folks. But I hope you find the podcast fun and entertaining, educational, and maybe even a little inspirational, I hope. That's really what I'm going after with this whole thing. So thanks again. And one small ask, if you don't mind, if you listen, whatever your preferred platform is, if you could just, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Apple or whatever, again, whatever platform you listen to, it helps. The algorithms like it. So if you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks, everybody.